Okay, so what I'm doing with this one is looking at this as separate pieces. I have the legs, I've got the top, I've got this bottom piece down here, and then the wooden beams that are here. So depending on if we imagine that whenever we're texturing something and we have wood grain, that we're actually going to have the grain going long ways. You wouldn't want it short ways, you'd want it long ways. That's gonna, otherwise it's gonna be, it's gonna look weird. It's not gonna be very accurate. Remind me as I just use my little Xbox thing to actually turn down the volume so that you don't hear How I Met Your Mother in the background. That's better. So, if sorry about that. So if I do this, I could break this up based off of that, or we'll talk about it more later if I was actually going to do this for substance, which I might decide like, oh, the metals are going to be one UV set, the wood will be another for one angle, and for another angle, it'll be another shell. But if I just go in, and remember we have our UV toolkit, and all of this has the faces, they're just not really UV mapped that great. It's not UV mapped at all. So I have to think about if I'm going to cut something open, where those pieces going to be, right? So one thing I could do anytime is, and you'll see this in some of the videos, is I want to double check and make sure that there's no history on it. And the freeze transformations is frozen, so that's good. And to start it off, if I just want to break up some of these, I just have to imagine how these are going to open up, right? So, oh, it has a bevel on the bottom. Okay. So, how I would want to, it's not exactly modeled the way I per se would have modeled it, but this will work out fine. It's not bad. So if I assume the whole top piece is going to be one piece, show you a little trick. Grab the face here, shift period, and as I use shift period and it's growing, I grow the selection, and there's the whole top portion. And then I can create middle mouse button to planar map on the Y, which is great except for the stretching of the sides, which we'd have to take care of. So I'd have to cut this, and I could do this a few ways. If I imagine this unwrapping and opening up, I'm going to imagine that I'm going to use that tool, the UV 3D cut and sew, which I've also put right here. And yeah, it should have an edge going into there, but that's okay. We'll cut, double clicking on the corners because I'm going to want it to cut the corners. And you see it's making the white border when I do that. And then I have to decide, say I'm going to have it cut this way. Okay. So it'd be attached over here, unhooked over there. But it'll open up on the side, so to give it the opportunity. Let me just see what that does. So if I go in, use my move tool now, select these UVs, and then go to my unfold, you see it pops it open like that. Optimize, you see it's really straightening that out. Sweet. Now, I don't have to keep it that way, but just so you can kind of see, Now I've got the whole top as one piece. I can also store UVs inside of here when I start laying this out. So now I'll do the bottom, and then I'll do the base and the legs. And let's just do it this way. I'm going to grab these faces, Control Shift, Shift period to grow the selection. So now I've got the whole bottom. And I could decide now. I could either make this all one piece, because the grain of this would be different. This would be one piece that this is attached to. It's rare that they would cut it like this. We'd imagine the grain would be like this, and then it would be like this. Or maybe even that it's one metal, or one long piece here, and then, the grain is there. But it only matters depending on how you plan on UV mapping it, or texturing it, I mean. So I'll planar map that on the Y. There you go. Control right mouse button to shell, use my move tool. Looks good on the bottom and the top, but we see it's all open. We have to cut this up, and we're going to have to separate that bottom. That's okay. So if I just I could just separate my bottom this way. Planar map that. There's the bottom. Leaves the top. And you see when I'm using this mode, you see how it's color coding things that are separate shells, which is nice. Now that should flip open. I'm gonna grab these corners here because corners don't open up easy. And with those selected, I'll just say cut. You see now they're thicker lines. And now let's just see what that does. Grab that whole piece, unfold, and let's do an optimize. Yeah, I thought there's some weird overlapping. If I want to get to the option so I don't have to keep clicking this a million times, I can hold down Shift left mouse button to pull up the options and just increase the iterations. And now every time I do it, it'll do it 10 times. So it's those little flaps that are overlapping that are giving me a little bit of issue. So what I might do is just separate these two end pieces if I wanted to. Or I could separate the little flaps. There's not a specific, hey, this is how you do it kind of deal. It's more or less depending on what the artist is and what they're going to do with the pieces. So you can always change it and sew things back together. But I'm just going to cut those. And now you can see I have these separated. And I can separate those, but now I've got those separate pieces there. Okay. And that leaves the base and the legs, which I could do a few different ways. Another thing to comment model-wise is a lot of times you don't have to keep, I mean, it's not going to be that much, but sometimes you can just delete the faces that you wouldn't be using. I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. using Control Shift to grab the faces that I want. Either Control Shift or just Shift. I don't want to grab the ones I don't want. Control Shift. I'm just going to do these guys together. Grab you guys. I'll just do all these together. And then that'll leave just those top pieces for the base, and then I'm good. So these, because they're all cylindricals, I could do them one by one, but they could take a while. So I'm going to do a little cheat, and I'm just going to select all those guys and do a cylindrical. And those are the actual legs. And what I want to do now, though, is make it, because this is gonna, it has to unwrap like a label. Oh, jinkies. I accidentally got some faces. Let's back up. Control deselect these guys. But we do want this. So we don't want the frame. We've already done those. We just want the legs. Cool. Now let's try that again. Make sure we got the top part. Yes. Okay. So, cylindrical map. Oh, there's so, man, forever getting the wrong thing. So let's try that again. Grab these guys. Grab these guys. Make sure I've got none of the base, none of the top. And I'm just going to grab these corners. Right, let's try that again. Cylindrical map. Move tool. Pull them on over. Yay. And now I just have to make sure that they can open up to unwrap. And that basically means I'm going to grab a corner on the inside. And then I also have to deal with the bottom. For this to properly unwrap, it can only be attached by one edge. I'm just going to cut those. Unfold, and there's my legs. Let's try optimize now. Oops, grab all of them. And there we are. So I've got the whole leg unwrapped. There's the base of the leg. This is the hole where it's connecting to there. And then the last thing is just these pieces up here. But you see, don't worry about the fact that my squares are different sizes. We'll fix those. It's the easiest way of getting these guys. I'll grab just these. planar map them. Oops. Oops. There we go. Just optimize them. Sometimes you have to play. One will give you the result you want, and the other one won't. And then these last pieces here. We got the same thing going on. Good. Right click UV, control, right click, hold to UV shell. Grab these, optimize. Now, so everything, I believe, I might have missed something, but everything appears to be UV mapped, but you'll notice that, oh, this guy, there it is. Just planar map that on the Y. So yeah, I do have a lot of pieces, that's okay. But now I can go in, right click, grab all these pieces, and we want all the textures, the cubes to be the same. And I'll just go down to where it says arrange layout. Shift left mouse click on layout. Make sure shell prescaling is set to 3D ratios. And what that means is it's going to size all these so that they're the same as their 3D ratios of the physical model. So an easy way of saying it is it's going to scale all these relative to each other so that all the grid texture is consistent. You don't have some cubes really big and lower resolution, some really tiny and higher resolution. They're all going to be the same. And I'm also giving it a frame padding of 6. And what that is it's not going to have them on top of each other or touching each other, or it shouldn't. So let's just see what happens. Hit apply. And now you notice all my cubes are the same. And if I zoom in here, I can even do like little tweaks if I needed to orient the shells. Now do layout. And there's 6 pixels between all of them. Now, they're still a little close for my taste, but so I might give a little bit, but that'll be pretty good. You just don't want them to be overlapping and on top of each other. And you don't want them touching the border or going outside the border. But now this guy is totally UV mapped. If I wanted to optimize it more, I could with less pieces. If I knew the same texture was going to be on all the legs, then I could stack the legs on top of each other if I needed to. But that's essentially it. So you're going to have a few pieces, but it depends. I have all my legs separated because you might have a knot hole in one and not in the other and stuff like that. This gives us the opportunity to have unique textures like stains, coffee stains, and scratches on the top, and have different wood or different things going on in other parts.